How did they mess up this book so bad? Hello there and welcome back to Cuckoo for Books. My name is Salva, and in the past few months we've been getting a lot of good news when it comes to book to film or book to TV adaptations. The Shadow and Bone cast has been released. Tamora friggin' Pierce announced that her books are going to be adapted into TV shows. I've been waiting for her to get an adaptation. Like, everyone and their grandmother were getting movie deals, and I was like, Tammy, where's yours? And she released a statement all these years ago saying she doesn't really trust Hollywood to deal with her material. So I was like, okay, I've completely given up hope of ever seeing her work adapted onto the screen. And then one day last week I woke up, people are retweeting Tamora Pierce, and I'm like, what? You know when you get those alerts on Twitter? I opened it and it said her works are in development, and I freaked out and I cried. I kid you not. Like, the first thing I did when I woke up, I was like bleary-eyed looking at my phone, and then I just started crying. In honor of that, I was going to originally make a video listing down other books that I would love to see adapted for film or TV, and then Extine May or Poland Bananas books beat me to it, so I was like, shoot, I want to do something book, film, TV themed. So I've decided to do a best and worst list, and because y'all live for drama, because everyone lives for drama, I will start with the worst list. Now, my worst list is going to look very different from my best list, which comes out next week, because my best list is split up into two categories. One, books that I have read that have been adapted that I liked, and two, books that I haven't read but I have watched the adaptations and I liked it. The worst list is going to be comprised solely of books that I have read and have watched the adaptations of, and that I hated. So that's why there are only 6 on this list versus the 10 or so I have on the best list. What makes it one of the worst book to screen adaptations? Sometimes it's a terrible movie. Sometimes it's a terrible adaptation. Sometimes it's a good movie, but a terrible adaptation. And sometimes it's apparently a good adaptation, but I just didn't like it. Beginning with the first worst. This takes the cake for the worst book to film adaptation I have ever seen. And that is the BBC adaptation of The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. How did they mess up this book so bad? First of all, you've got a cast of Olivia Colman, Vanessa Redgrave, and Sophie Turner. It was a completely amazing cast, and the script just butchered the original book. It was one of those adaptations that was, sure, scene by scene, it was faithful, but it didn't have the heart of the book in it. It felt very formulaic. Also, the entirety of the plot of The 13th Tale, without giving anything away, revolves on the fact that there are these two identical looking twins. You can't tell them apart, and that plays a big part into the plot and into the ending of the book. What does the movie do? Instead of having Sophie Turner play dual roles, they cast another actress to be her identical twin, and you can clearly tell them apart, so it defeats the purpose of the entire story when the entire story revolves around the plot that you can't tell these two girls apart. Nobody is dumb enough to buy that. Honestly, The 13th Tale is one of my favorite books. It just deserved so much more than that. I think it might have even been better off as a mini-series like what they did with The Haunting of Hill House, but it did not deserve that terrible, terrible adaptation. The second worst book to film adaptation on my list, and this is something I think a lot of people might disagree with, but I personally did not like it at all, and that is the Catching Fire film. Actually, if I'm being honest, I'm gonna go with the entirety of the Hunger Games franchise, with the exception of Mockingjay, which is weird because people hate Mockingjay. I liked it for reasons, we're gonna get into that on the best list, but I did not like the first 2 Hunger Games film at all. But I think this is more a matter of preference. When reading the books, I imagined Panem to be this out of this world kind of universe, except for District 12, of course, but I imagined the universe to be more vibrant, have a Marvel filter on it or something. And the fact that they made the Hunger Games movies very gritty and dark and used a lot of muted, subtle colors, it was just not for me, because that's not how I imagined it when I was reading the books. Because even the capital scenes in the Hunger Games movies did not have the sparkle I was looking for, especially the second Hunger Games movie. I've said this in previous videos, but Catching Fire is the only book to have hyped me up to the point that when that big plot point is revealed, I threw the book. It's been, what, 10 years since the book was released? I can talk about spoilers. When Katniss found out she was going back into the arena, when she found out, like, oh my gosh, she's not insane, she's literally saying this entire arena is a clock. Those were such big revelations that I feel like the movie just glossed over. The Hunger Games was crazy. It was insane, and the movies just weren't. They were dull and boring to me, and I get that they were trying to go for that gritty, realistic, post-apocalyptic vibe, but it was just not what I was looking for. But especially, I think they did Catching Fire wrong. Maybe they'll do an adaptation of the new book. I don't know. Do we want one? You know, I don't even know at this point. The third worst book to film adaptation for me would be I Am Number 4, adapted from I Am Number 4 by Pittacus Lore. Alexa, play I Forgot That You Existed by Taylor Swift. Listen, the books weren't perfect. I gave up at around the second or third book, I think. Right around the same time, like a month after the book came out. It was optioned for film, so I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. But I guess the downside of that is that if you develop a film right when the books come out, you don't really have a sense of the characters and the plot, and it showed in the movie because, dude, I can't even remember like half of it. One might argue, then why is it in this video? But the fact that I can't remember any of it, even though I loved the book. It was a strange book. It's a strange series. And the fact that the movie didn't include any of that, honestly, when it bombed, I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. It was terrible. With these book to film adaptations, and there was a time, and you can see a pattern, this was in the early 2010s, where Hollywood would literally drain the creativity from the books to make for attractive actors and hot makeout scenes. And it took all the fun from the books, like with Catching Fire, in my opinion, although Finnick Odair, still very fun. Sam Claflin, I love you. That was the case for I Am Number 4. I think had they played number 4 a little younger, sort of Logan Lerman's age and Percy Jackson, it would have made for a more exciting, fun movie, and it would have appealed to a different demographic. That's just me. It was horrible, but no skin off my back because I didn't finish the series and nobody has cared about the movie ever since. Speaking of Logan Lerman, of course, coming in at number 4 on this list, this is on everybody's list, it would be Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief and Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters. Now, I watched the first book before I ever read the series. I was like, I like it. It's alright. It's trying to be Harry Potter, but it's fun. Then I read the books, and then I was like, no, this movie is terrible. What did it do to my characters? And then I watched the second movie after having finished the series, and I was like, you're right, this is terrible. What did they do to this series? I think it was a mistake for them to age up the actors. It lost a lot of the magic that was in the Percy Jackson series, even more so with the second movie, I would say, but I think it would have played really well as an animated TV series, like Avatar: The Last Airbender style. I think that's what would have worked best with these series. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I watched it on Netflix recently. It's not a bad movie, the first one. The second one, we don't talk about that, that's terrible. First one, fine, it's not a bad movie, but as an adaptation of a previously existing property is bad. Coming in at number 5 would be Breaking Dawn Part 2. So specific. Listen, I was not the biggest fan of the Twilight books. I still am not, but I've learned to look at them in hindsight with a sort of nostalgic rose-colored filter, like, oh, high school days, oh, Bella and Edward days. I liked learning about the Pacific Northwest. That being said, I wasn't a fan of the books, even less so of the movies. Breaking Dawn Part 2 was the worst. A lot of people have talked about that fake out towards the end of the movie, which I frankly did not remember, so I'm not gonna talk about that, but for me, it just did not have the happily ever after vibes that I got from Breaking Dawn the book. I actually didn't mind Breaking Dawn the book because it was very fluffy and very fairy tale ending and happy ever after with their cottage in the woods and having a baby, and the baby's descriptions in the book were so cute, and then they ruined it in the movie with that awful CGI robotic baby. I realized a lot of my comments about these worst book to film adaptations are about the movies taking away something from the books. With Breaking Dawn 2, it just took away from the romance of the book and instead give us Hollywood high budget, woo, look what we can do with CGI now. No, you can't do it with CGI. Your CGI with a baby was horrible. The one thing that that movie had going for it though, and shockingly a sentence I never thought I'd hear from my lips, it did something better than the Harry Potter movies did. I can't believe I said that, that's so weird. The ending credits managed to fuse the book and the movie and honored the 4-5 films in a great way. Even actors who had fallen off after book 1, they were all honored in the ending credits. That's what we wanted for Harry Potter. I remember somebody had this theory before the last movie came out that they would do first appearance, last appearance in the movies, and when that didn't happen, I was just like, what is this boring fade to black credits? And when Twilight did it, I was like, oh my god, they actually did it better than us. I hate it. But honestly, if the best thing I can say about your movie is that you did the end credits great, we have to talk about how bad your movie sucked. And as for the last worst adaptation on my list, and it's the only TV show on this list, and you can probably guess what it is, I hate it so much, it would be Shadowhunters. Now, I think I can just end the video with that. All I have to do is say Shadowhunters, fade to black, boom. It requires no explanation of how badly they messed up the property. First of all, it was the second chance at adapting this series. We already got a City of Bones movie that I personally like, and I don't know why people did not. It's now a meme online that it's like, well, you didn't appreciate our mediocre City of Bones, you got an even crappier TV series. I gotta tell you, I did not make it through the first season. I think I made it through the first 7 or 8 episodes. The protagonist, Clary, who I've mentioned in my book reviews, I already want to kill on paper. I was not having her on the TV show. Like, how did you make an already annoying protagonist even more annoying on screen? She looks like Clary, I guess, but first of all, I couldn't get past that bottle red hair. I couldn't get past her acting. Jace was probably the closest cast, and then don't get me started into why Isabel has a Spanish accent and Alec doesn't when they grew up in the same household. And then there was technology in the Institute, even though they're averse to technology, and I was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing to my property? The mediocre movie, which was not given a sequel, was better than the series. That's how crappy this series was. I don't know why they can't adapt this property properly. There's so much material you can work on. For Hollywood to mess up twice, it's mind-boggling. Financially, I guess Shadowhunters didn't mess up. They made it to their 3rd or 4th season, but look, if the author disavows it, that's not the best look for anyone. Now I'm all like hyped up and angry for making this video, and now I need to go like jump into a pool and just like cool off because I'm so mad with what they did to these books. And that about does it for my list of the worst book to screen adaptations. Leave a comment down below which ones you agree with, which ones you don't agree with. If you want to start a flame war down there about Shadowhunters or The Hunger Games, go ahead, but be nice. You can follow me on my other bookish adventures on Twitter. I'm at Cuckoo for Books, and on Instagram I'm at Cuckoo for Books and at Salva Villarasa. Please subscribe, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye guys!